listening to Singularity, episode 15. Today we are breaking down the text of part 7 of chapter 2 in A Course in Miracles, and our journey to discovering the truths within these pages begins right now. I am Angie, your host of Singularity, a podcast where we are not afraid to ask the questions that lead us to our truth. Each season we'll be discussing our way through a different sacred or inspired text. Join us with Season 1 as we find our truths in A Course in Miracles, the advent or beginning of a great awakening. And just like the Course itself will tell you, this is but one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others, this one only differing in form. They all lead to God in the end. So go ahead and grab your coffee, have your pen and paper handy, and follow along in the text if you have it. Don't forget a free version is available at acourseinmiraclesnow.com. Here we go. Welcome, Miracle Makers. I'm glad you've taken time for yourself today, and I'm blessed to have you share it with me. Now, we all know of cause and effect, but what is the Course telling us about it? How does it apply to our spiritual journey? And what is it really? Well, the IQ Matrix blog defines it like this. The universal law of cause and effect states that for every effect, there's a definite cause, and for every cause, there's a definite effect. Our thoughts, behaviors, and actions create specific effects that manifest and create our lives as we know it. Last episode, we talked about fear and conflict, how we experience conflict as the expression of the fear we create. And the crazy thing we do is then we complain about it, then ask or pray for an outside unrelated source to remove the fear for us. We forget fear isn't real, and we seem to not understand why these prayers don't get answered, frustrated even. I just caught myself doing this the other day. Over the holiday weekend, we had to board our pups, and anyone who knows me knows how much I love my little pug Lucy. You may have actually heard her a few times, maybe even this episode snoring in the background. Well, it'll be 13 years this June that I've had her sweet presence in my life. Anyway, she was having some IBS issues from the stress of boarding, I guess, and I was starting to get a little bit worried after about day 2. She's getting older now, and I just didn't want anything to send her into a downward spiral. So I'm standing outside, I'm watching her struggle, and I find myself praying for God to take away this IBS and help her feel better. I felt myself very aware of this dialogue I was having with God, and then the things I had been studying in this section of the text started to come to me, and it changed the dialogue I was having. I realized everything that had taken place up until that moment was just a natural reaction of Lucy's body from the events leading up to it. So I just prayed for guidance as to what actions I needed to take on our end of cause and effect. This way it could just do its thing, but more quickly in the direction of getting Lucy well. And Miss Lucy is doing just fine, by the way. So what I had to realize is that Lucy's IBS wasn't a personal emotional attack on me. It was just the natural response of her body trying to correct itself. It isn't some big cruel joke God plays on us to make these things happen or to answer the prayers of some and not others. There is a greater understanding that needs to happen on our part. As we go through the episode and discuss the text in more detail, it'll reveal to us that deeper understanding, giving us a bit more of the knowledge as to how and why it all really works. In paragraph 1, sentence 3, we are introduced to the law of cause and effect. Sentence 4 tells us cause and effect is one of the most basic boundaries within the creation plan. It ensures everything is protected and runs as it should. This law is one of the main reasons creation is possible. It is the most basic law all other laws stem from, built within God's will. It works like this. Fear is our creation. We believe it possible, and so the law of cause and effect takes over as a series of constructive acts, and as a result, we experience it. Interfering with any law will cause more damage. We cannot go against any law set in nature without repercussions. There is an eternity of momentum and purpose behind each one. Instead, we must become one with the same momentum and purpose. This is what the Bible is referring to when it's saying, "Obey my commandments or you shall surely die." For example, it starts way back in Genesis 2:17. "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die." Some religions have had a heyday with this one and ones like it because they use it to back up that hellfire and brimstone approach. But it isn't a threat, it's simply a warning. This verse is just saying, if you branch out into that duality mindset, you will not be alive in the sense that you are now. This world intended for you to enjoy will become dead to you, and you will only see from fear. He's basically telling them, look, you have a choice, but there is a creation plan. And within that plan, natural laws to keep this whole system running and safe for everyone and everything involved. And if you go against or ignore those rules that are within your knowing, you will experience these same laws in reverse, taking you further into a spiritual death. Sentence 5. These laws are a part of us too, and we can't go against that momentum and purpose within ourselves either. And any greater knowing or God who honors this within us isn't going to intervene. This is why there is no stepping in and helping, because doing this would be disregarding this same advice, the power of our thinking and censoring our creative ability. The next sentence says this would completely go against the purpose of the Course, which is aiding us in remembering our truth and purpose so that ultimately we can accept the atonement of our own free will, giving us that knowledge so that we can decide or make our choice from a place of remembering the wholeness truth or the whole truth. Sentence 7 tells us the best way to help us when we become dependent on outside sources is to lead us back to our independence by helping us remember our own truth. Lao Tzu, the author of the Tao Te Ching, said, "Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime." By leading us back to our own power, this will automatically appeal to our own wish to grow. We will begin to use our thoughts with intention and become the source of our needs, making us confident in our mind, relaxing our thoughts about the body. From this place, we can begin to see just how thoughtless we had become, literally. Self-diligence and awareness in this way is what keeps us from a fear of separation. 8. In this state, we see just how overrun our minds have become with pointless, mindless thoughts, and we'd be right to realize it would take a miracle to regain that control. 9. Thinking from a love-based mindset is very unfamiliar for us because we've only ever practiced fear-based thinking. But here's the lesson. Here's the action we can take. With training, we can become very skilled at shifting our thoughts to love. 10 tells us that we all could use this type of training. We won't be able to feel or hear our internal guidance pulling us toward our truth and ultimately to our atonement if we don't begin to take control back of our minds and begin to think with intention, because intentional thought means intentional creating. Sentence 2 and 3. A love-trained mind working miracles is very powerful, making miscreating impossible. During the process of training our minds, we need the miracle because we struggle having control over our thoughts all of the time. And when we go back and forth from controlling our mind to mindlessly miscreating, it creates a repeating loop, like a dog chasing its tail. I actually looked into why a dog chases its tail, and I found what it said very interesting as it applies to the Course. So what makes a dog run in circles is a psychological factor due to anxiety, frustration, or fear, and partly because of a lack of mental stimulation. So going back to us, our fear and untrained mind leads us to running in circles. We're left chasing the miracle. And we get this isn't the ideal healthy mindset. The miracle was made to carry us from point A to point B by collapsing the time between the two. It wasn't designed to take us from A to B and then back again. So our mental struggle of going round and round the miracle creates a loop or a circle. And this circle doesn't allow for the time to collapse as it should, because the normal path is a straight line. It's linear. If you take a piece of paper and you make a straight line, you could fold the paper to make the line look shorter. But when you draw a circle and then fold it in the same way, you still end up with a circle. A straight line shortens or it collapses within the fold, but this circling keeps us in the circle. This is how time and the miracle work together in both situations. In fact, time is a result of the law of cause and effect. Remember, because time was an effect of our miscreating distance between ourselves and our source. In the last sentence of this paragraph, we are left with an important message. As miracle makers, we have to honor the law of cause and effect, knowing it is a natural and necessary part in making the miracle. Paragraph 3, first sentence. Our thoughts created both the miracle and fear. 2 tells us because of the law of cause and effect, the one will automatically exist because of the other, because one cannot exist alone. So when God moved with intention and we became the movement of God, that intention became ours. Intention, or God's will, has laws and boundaries to keep things constant and safe. One of those laws we have come to know as Newton's third law of motion. We probably all know it by heart. For every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. This is a branch off of cause and effect. So when our thoughts created fear, then the opposite equal reaction of the universe was the miracle. Sentence 3, they are opposites. There is no common ground to claim a bit of both. It is either one or the other. So when we choose one, we're saying no to the other, even if it's only temporarily. 4 and 5, since the first thought of separation, fear has been a part of everyone and everything. We fear the Creator, the creation, and we really fear ourselves because we are a combination of both. 6 and 7, this fear makes us want to stick our head in a hole so that we can deny our truth and believe all that exists is inside this little hole with us. It's much easier for us to process our power in smaller doses. This distortion of thought was our way of coping with the fear. 8 and 9, but choosing fear didn't change what we are. We are always creators, so our mind is always creating, even when we've chosen fear. So everything we create and perceive within fear is part of that initial distorted thought. In choosing fear, we are going against the initial movement, the opposite but equal reaction to the expansion. Working against that momentum and power is painful. 10 through 12 says, the cause and effect law still applies to all forms of creating, but it's temporary. Miscreating cannot create anything eternal because it is nothing. The original cause is the Creator, or God, and the original effect is the creation, or the sonship. That expansion from creator to creation was a positive action, scientifically, not emotionally, and for that action, there was an equal but opposite reaction or effect. So if God is love, then there is now an opposite that allows for the love to be experienced as love, and that opposite we know it as lack of love. Negative word association aside, because of lack of love, the love has something showing a stark contrast, making it possible to be reflected out and experienced. The last 3 sentences tell us the big difference here is what intention or force is driving the law into motion. The force or intention driving creating is love, and the force or intention behind miscreating is fear or lack of love. Every difference boils down to either love or fear. Paragraph 4. 1. We made fear, we believe fear. We believe fear is out of our control, which then creates a perception where fear is out of our control. And everything we think within that perception backs that miscreation because we believe in our creations. Sentence 2 and 3, we can't fix fear by controlling it because to believe fear needs to be controlled is to say it exists. 4 and 5 say the only real way to fix it is through the complete understanding and practice of love. Until we master love, we will continue to feel and be able to access fear, so we will still suffer the side effects of fear. Paragraph 5. 1. Fear can't occupy our mind at the same time as love. I know we've talked about this before in a previous episode, but this is what Matthew 6:24 is referring to when it says, no one can serve 2 masters. 2. When we believe in one, we are saying the other doesn't exist. 3. Fear is nothing. Love is everything. 4 and 5. Comparing darkness to fear and light to love, when light is on, darkness disappears. Same too if when we keep the light out, darkness becomes our experience. Whichever we believe becomes our experience. 6 and 7. But believing there is an option to choose between love or fear is actually a separation thought. It will only make it worse if we get hung up on the fact that we have this separation thought. 8 and 9. Instead, if we can just see it to fix it, and not fixate on having them. This is how we'll correct them, and it's a far quicker way to get ourselves in a right state of mind to begin the process of accepting the atonement. 10 through 13. There is no spectrum between all or nothing. There's no variance existing between the two. It can only be all or nothing. There isn't a position we could hold between these 2 extremes. It's more like an on and off switch rather than a dial. Time exists as a tool for us when we believe we exist between all and nothing. And we use the time here to remember we don't actually exist between these 2 extremes. Our truth is we only exist in one, or experience time in the other until we do. But stuck in the space that doesn't actually exist, we believe the limits within this level illusion, and we seem to only be able to handle or correct our fear in smaller doses. Miscreating this space as a reality also made time possible, and time can be used as a tool, like a ladder, to get us out of the idea of levels. In this last sentence of paragraph 5, I had a big aha moment. The Course reintroduces us to one of the most popular Bible verses, one so many of us, including myself, think we know so well. Just by shifting the emotions around some trigger words, I got an entirely different understanding of John 3:16, which reads, "For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." God, as love, extended, sacrificed, or gave himself to the whole as the sonship so that this love could be experienced. And when the sonship remembers this, they won't slip away into the nothing. Instead, they can live as God intended forever. Paragraph 6. Sentence 1 and 2. God has only one Son. Emphasis on one. Son refers to all of his creations, and without all of his creations, the sonship cannot act as a whole. The rest of the paragraph tells us, when the sonship remembers, they are part of a whole, experiencing love as an extension from that same love. Their full potential will be far greater. The full potential of the entire sonship cannot be reached, though, until each extension of the whole realizes this. Until all of the sonship have returned, the separation thoughts will continue. For separation thoughts to be completely gone, all of the sonship, the whole of creation, must return to the one mind. We will not and cannot fully understand the true meaning of wholeness until we are all whole again. Now, we all have the option to choose the error mindset, but if we do choose the error mindset, we choose nothing. The atonement provides us access to our truth so that we don't choose blindly. Paragraph 7. 1. Here are some additional helpful points about readiness. 2 and 3. Readiness is what we feel before getting something done. It can't be the other way around. We can't do something and then be ready for it. It's too late at that point. Readiness to do the action must come before the action. 4 through 6. Once we are ready to do something on some level, that desire to get it done follows. They go hand in hand, so when we are ready, desire will follow. Being ready and then having the desire to get something done isn't changing our mind. It is, though, the potential to change our mind. Enough time spent going through this process of readiness, desire, and action, we become very skilled at intentionally doing this process, building our confidence. 7, 8, and 9. This whole time we have been trying to master fear, but fear is only a result or function of not choosing love. But we can master love because love is a state of being. Readiness as the first step is the doing process. It builds confidence. It may seem like it might take a lot of time going through this process of change multiple times before we can build our confidence and skill up to where it needs to be for real change. But true change can happen in an instant. The process may take time, but the actual change can happen with just a thought. That wraps up this episode. The thoughts I share in each podcast are my best interpretation of what resonated as truth for me. I love sharing them with you, but my intention is to evoke your own thoughts that will make rise within your awareness your own truth. Thank you for being a part of my journey and for allowing me to be a part of yours. With your coffee still warm and your notes fresh, take some time to go inward. Align yourself daily with your truth and take it with you into every experience. Until next time, keep shining.